Mr. Chris got to talk to you about what we're doing this whole December, but what we're doing this morning is talking about our feelings. Because this morning, we're talking about putting our whole heart in. Andrew, can you put my title up? And so I have a question for you kids while you're still here, and you don't have to answer. In fact, I kind of don't want you to answer out loud. Just think of someone. Okay? So do you know anyone who cries a lot? Don't say it out loud. Because I'm sure my daughter has someone in mind. But I'm going to kind of out myself. If you know someone who cries a lot, I'm going to actually out myself because I actually cry a lot.
Me too.
Oh, yeah.
I'm not scared.
It's true. I cry like all the time. I cry when I'm sad. I cry when I'm angry. I cry when I'm frustrated. I cry when I don't play Fortnite, but I'm sure I would cry if I lost a Fortnite battle. But I even cry like for happy things too. I cry when I'm really happy or like a sweet commercial comes on. That could make me cry. I cry, I think a lot of us maybe cry here. If you guys notice that there are an extreme amount of tissues at this church, we keep Kleenex boxes all around because sometimes when we get in the presence of God or in worship, we cry. I definitely cry in worship like all the time. And so I think as grown-ups, we think that crying is just for little kids.
No, it's not.
It's just like for you guys.
No, it's not.
That's right. We're preaching to the choir here, right? And like you're supposed to grow out of crying, right? Like we're supposed to grow up and not cry as much anymore. Or maybe like some kid has told you sometime, like when you're crying, like, grow up. You're being such a crybaby, right? Like that's not very nice. And really, when we grow up, we should like maybe have more control over our emotions and maybe not let our emotions boss us around so much. Like for instance, if you have like a big feeling and it's like really angry and it's saying, you should push your brother right now.
Yes, I would love to.
We want to learn to not like follow that emotion and like push our brother, right? But sometimes we feel these feelings and they're so big, it's like they like overtake our body and they like come out of our eyes. It's like our body leaks our emotion out in crying. It's these big emotions. And here's the deal. Here's why I know that we're not supposed to grow out of our emotions is because Jesus cried too.
Wait, what?
Yeah, Jesus cried. Not just as a baby. As a baby, he of course cried. But he was born and then he grew up to be a man. And as a full-grown man, he cried. The Bible tells us it happened a couple of times. So it means that he felt these feelings that were so big and so big for his body that they came out of his eyes as well, and he cried. And so what this tells me is that it's okay. And actually, since Jesus was perfect and he was our example of a perfect human, that our feelings are actually a gift to us. I think that if Jesus was here, he would play Fortnite with you.
Oh.
But he would express his big feelings and sometimes cry. And what our feelings are a gift because when we share them and when we express them, then they can teach us about ourselves. So here's what I want you guys to do. Now we can go to the classroom because I know you're really excited to go down and practice your play. But here's what I want you to do. Crying is just one way that we can express our emotion, our big emotion. I want you guys to think about what are some other ways that you can share your feelings with God or with other people. And you guys can talk about that in your classroom. And then you can practice the play. Okay, so that's it. Now you can for real go. No, this isn't a part where you get to say stuff. But you can say stuff to your teacher downstairs. So parents if you could take your kids out to the lobby, someone walk them out there and check them in with either Miss Annie or Miss Karen. They'll have a list to check your child off. That would be great. Thanks for being up here with us, kids. Okay, so while they're all getting sorted, I want to tell you what we're going to do after this service, like after this part is over. We're going to have a little bit of hangout time out in the lobby, and we're going to bring the kids back up and everything, and we're going to decorate emoji cookies. Yeah, okay, just a little more excitement. We're going to decorate. Yeah! So you notice we're doing things a little different this morning. We're trying to be a little playful. We're trying to, put a fun spin on putting our whole self in. You guys got kind of a sneak peek with the kids' teaching of where we're headed today about putting our whole heart in. And this is my question. I said to the kids that I believe our emotions, our feelings, are a gift. So while we're waiting for the parents to kind of filter back in, I just want you to think about that just for a second. Like, do you think that all the emotions, not just the happy ones, not just the joyful ones, all the emotions, do you think that your emotions are a gift? So just ponder it for just a minute. I'm going to get oriented up here. Okay, so what do you think? Because I really did mean that. I really meant what I said to the kids, that our emotions, even the ones that we feel so strongly that they come out of our eyes in tears, even the ones that we feel strongly enough to make us cry, I believe that this part of our whole self is a gift. But I must admit, they don't always feel like a gift. To me, my emotions can be like kind of annoying, actually. Annoying, inconvenient at times, especially those strong ones like anxiety, rage, grief. Those emotions, when they like bubble up to the surface, they can just like derail a whole day, like sometimes a whole week. And if we're talking in this series about our hearts, our minds, and our strength, bringing those aspects of our whole self to each other, because Jesus brought his whole self to us, you can think of those as like the ability to feel, the ability to think, and the ability to do. Our feelings, they kind of like have this way of sabotaging the other two, don't they? It's like pretty hard to think rationally when you're experiencing anxiety. It's also tough to be productive when you're so sad that you can't stop crying. So we have this kind of like intense relationship with our emotions sometimes. Or maybe you just don't think about your emotions that much at all. Maybe you're just kind of confused about your emotions. Like, what's the point? Why do we even have emotions? Can't we just be thinkers and doers? So why do I think that they're a gift? Here's why. Because when we can embrace this aspect of our humanity by fully feeling and expressing our emotions to God and to others, they signal us to what's laying beneath our surface. See, when we think and we do, we're kind of, we're bopping along, we're up on the surface all the time, and then bam, out of nowhere, this emotion comes over us. It's signaling us to what's happening under the surface of our lives. So I'm going to say this again. I believe that our emotions are, all of our emotions, are a gift to us. Because when we embrace them, by letting ourselves feel them, by letting ourselves express them to God and to others, they are a great ally to us in letting us know what's happening under the surface. So first, we're going to look at Jesus. Jesus, when he was incarnated, came to be born as a baby and grow up to be a man. He fully embodied emotion. He fully embodied this aspect of our whole self. He felt the full spectrums of feelings. And we know that because they recorded them in the Bible. So we know that he not only felt the feelings, he must have expressed them because they were observable by the people around him who are the ones that wrote them down. Okay, so he not only felt the feelings, he expressed them. And these are just a few, actually, that I put up here. There's a lot more, and I'm sure he actually felt a lot more. They just didn't write it down. He felt joy at the return of the 72. When they came back from doing the stuff, he felt joy and he rejoiced with them. In Mark 10, he felt love and compassion for the rich young ruler who was struggling so much to know how he could follow Jesus. Felt a lot of emotions in Mark 10 because, again, later on, he was indignant. He was indignant when he saw his disciples rebuking and discouraging the children from coming to him. In John 11, at the tomb of Lazarus, it says that he was deeply moved in his spirit and greatly troubled. And in Luke 19, this is during the triumphal entry back into Jerusalem, when everyone around him was celebrating and joyful, what he felt was grief. It says that he saw the city and he wept over it. And then at Gethsemane, in Matthew 26, he's praying out to God. He's trying to get his will to line up with the Father's. And Jesus says, "My soul is deeply grieved, so that I am almost dying of sorrow." That's some pretty strong emotion. Pretty strong emotion that he was feeling. So we felt all of these, and I really encourage you, my slides will be uploaded. I encourage you to sit with these. We can't go over all of them this morning, but I encourage you to sit with each of them in turn. I spent a little time with them this week, and I'm just going to share a couple of observations with you. Jesus, when he felt and expressed these emotions, some of them really deep emotions, in every instance, he did one of two things, or both. His expressed emotion either led him toward God. He either cried out to God in lament, or he thanked God, or was rejoicing in God. He let his emotion take him to God and interact with God in some way. Or he let that expressed emotion lead him toward others. He rejoiced with other people when he was happy. He let that expressed emotion take him to teaching others, to instructing others, to interacting with others in some way. And this was the other thing that I was drawn to. I was drawn to, maybe because I'm a crier, I was drawn to the scriptures where Jesus cries. And we can infer that he cried at the Garden of Gethsemane, but it doesn't explicitly say it there. It explicitly says that he wept in two places. And the first was at Lazarus' tomb. So Lazarus was a friend of his, and he was away on a journey, and they sent him word, "Hey, Lazarus is really sick, he's going to die. Please come and save him." And he doesn't come. He delays. And so by the time he gets to the tomb, Lazarus has been dead for a few days. So he's really dead. And everybody is mourning. And Jesus comes upon the scene, and this is what happens. When Jesus saw her, it's Mary, sobbing, and the Jews who had come with her also sobbing, he was deeply moved in spirit And so this translated, this word that is used here, deeply moved in spirit, is not a word that we have in English. And the Amplified Version, which is what I have up here, does, I think, the best job at translating the heart of what this word means. It says he was deeply moved in spirit to the point of anger at the sorrow caused by death. Something wasn't right. Death, it wasn't part of the plan, right? It was like he was angry at this sorrow that he was witnessing. And he was troubled by it. And he said, "Where have you laid him?" And they said, "Lord, come and see." And Jesus wept. Now, a lot of times, I've heard this verse referenced a lot of times like, oh, Jesus was sad with them. He was sad and he was joining them in their sadness. And we don't know. Maybe that's what he was doing. But looking at that word, deeply moved in spirit to the point of anger, I think he was angry. I think he was feeling a feeling so big and angry that he couldn't contain it in his body, and he wept. He wept because he was so angry. And I certainly relate to that. Here's the other one that stood out to me. The other place where it says explicitly that he wept is at the triumphal entry. This is where he's coming into Jerusalem the last time, which is going to end with him hanging on a cross. And this is Palm Sunday. This is the Hosanna. This is the palm branches. And everyone is celebrating and joyful. Hosanna to the King. This is when he came near the place where the road goes down to the Mount of Olives. The whole crowd of disciples began joyfully to praise God in loud voices for all the miracles they had seen. They were excited. They were joyful. And some of the Pharisees in the crowd said to Jesus, "Teacher, rebuke your disciples." "I tell you," he replied, "if they keep quiet, the stones will cry out." He affirms their joy. He's like, joy is what is going to happen here because this is a joyful event. He affirms it and he says, even the stone, if you shut them up, then the stones are going to be joyful and they're going to cry out. So he says, yes, joy is a good thing to be feeling right now. And then the very next verse, as he approached Jerusalem and saw the city, he wept over it and said, if you, even you, had only known on this day what would bring you peace. But now it is hidden from your eyes. He wept over the city out of sorrow. These weren't tears of joy. These were tears of sorrow. So with everyone around him celebrating and joyful, he had what I would imagine was an unexpected emotion come to the surface. Have you ever been sad when everyone else around you is joyful? Yeah, I have too. Thank you. And I think what happens is we think, well, I shouldn't be feeling that. Look, everyone around me is joyful. But that's not what Jesus does. He doesn't say, oh, I shouldn't be feeling that, push it back down. He allows himself to fully embrace the emotion that was surfacing in him. And he cries out to God in a lament. So if Jesus is our perfect example of being a human, of bringing our whole selves, and he leaned into the emotions that he was feeling and experiencing, and he expressed the feelings, even feelings so big that they made him cry, then yeah, this is our model for how to bring this aspect of our humanity to God and to others. To allow ourselves to feel the full depth of our emotions, even to the point of tears. So, what I am not saying, I want to be really clear, is that you all need to start feeling big feelings and cry about them. Okay? Yeah. That is not what I'm saying. You don't have to be like me. You don't have to become a crier to be like Jesus. Okay? We all have a natural range of emotion, okay? For instance, my husband Ben's natural range of emotions is quite different than my natural range of emotions, okay? And if I were to graph our emotions, like in intensity, by the way, I did. This would be Ben's. Ben is very even keel. These are his emotions. They go slightly up, they go slightly down, they go slightly up, they go slightly down. Compared to my graph, which looks like this. I have much more intense emotions, much more often than Ben does. They go up and they go down. And then I saw this graph and it made me laugh because it's maybe more accurate for my emotions. I feel many things at the same time. So great is my ability to feel is that I can feel many intense things all at the same time. But Ben has a much different natural range than I do. He does not feel things very intensely. And this is really, it's not meant to poke fun at him or to poke fun at myself, because I greatly value that Ben is even keel. And in fact, if both of us had such intense range of emotions, I'm not sure what our household would be like, okay? Both ends, both ranges are valid and they are valuable. But what I am saying is that those of us, like me, who do have this ability to feel intense feelings, it is a strength. It is a valuable thing because our emotions and the ability to feel them is a gift. It is a gift. But I didn't always think that. I did not always think that they were a gift. Sometimes I still don't at times. It depends on the day and the emotion I'm feeling at the time. But God has had me on quite the journey the last few years with my emotions. You know, about 3 years ago, about 3.5 years ago now, I was commissioned as a pastor at this church, and I joined the pastoral council, and I was so overwhelmed. I have been so overwhelmed in this position over the last 3 years, and I have felt so many big emotions very often, like almost all the time at work. And this is not an exaggeration, but there was a several-month period, maybe more, where I cried at every pastoral council meeting. And I am not kidding. There were some pastoral council meetings where I just cried the whole time. This is about how I approached myself during this time. Emily, get a hold of yourself, you crazy person. Oh my gosh, this is so unproductive. You guys aren't getting anything done because you are crying all the time. See, I had to get my emotions out of the way so that I could get some work done. Don't you think this is how we approach our emotions, especially the big ones that kind of get in the way? And Jesus was very near to me in this time period. But this is how I approached him. Jesus, I'm crying out to you in this emotion. Would you please fix this for me? Would you please get rid of this emotion so I can get back to work? And I was super annoyed because he didn't. He didn't fix my emotions. He didn't get them out of the way. And he said really annoying things like this. Emily, be kind to yourself and your emotions. And my spiritual director said equally annoying things like, Emily, what do you think that emotion is trying to tell you? And I was like, I don't care. I just want it gone so I can get back to work. And round I went. But God, in his mercy, did not take them away. He left me in this season of these big emotions, and they rendered me pretty much non-functional by one point. I know I'm really selling emotions as a gift, but just wait, it's coming around. I was thoroughly burned out. My emotions were all over the place, and I had no other option but to yield. The work was in yielding to how God was leading me, yielding to the kingdom. I stopped insisting that he take my emotions away, I started to try to be kind to myself and to hear what my emotions were saying. I started feeling fully my emotions with Jesus. I started crying out to him from that place of overwhelmed. This is too much, Jesus. I can't do this. And I found some surprising answers from him in the midst of it. Not about how to get my emotion to stop, which is what I originally wanted, but what he gave me was insights to myself, insights into my inner being, places where inside I was not lining up with the good things that he had for me. And when I said, Jesus, this is too much, I can't do this, he'd say, yes, Emily, you're carrying too much. It's not yours to carry. This church is mine, not yours. You need to let me carry it. And I found this place inside of myself where it was overburdening, taking too much on myself. And over again, as he said this to me, I would give the church back to him over and over and over again. And I'm still doing it, getting better at it. Over and over again in the overwhelm, sitting, feeling the overwhelm, letting it come up and giving it once again back to Jesus. And this is what I learned. Oh, also, this is really important too. At those pastoral council meetings, when I started letting that overwhelm fully come up in the presence of Jesus and gaining these insights, I could let that emotion then take me back to others in pastoral council, and I could give them the insights that Jesus was giving me as to how we were structuring things at this church, how we're structuring things, that we're not supposed to carry this ourselves. How do we structure things so we keep the weight on Jesus? So this is what I learned in this process over the last few years. Hard won. I've learned that our emotions, if we can fully feel them, if we let ourselves feel them like Jesus did, and allow them to take us to God, take us to others, they are a gift because they tip us off to what's underneath. Places where what we're doing or what we're experiencing isn't lining up with what God has for us. But here's what we do instead. We spend most of our energy just trying not to feel the bad emotions. When we feel a bad emotion coming up, we spend a lot of energy stamping that down. It's like, nope, don't want to be angry right now. Nope, don't want to be sad. Don't have time for that. Just push that aside, dismiss that, ignore that. And I'm telling you, if we spend even a fraction of the energy that we spend shoving stuff down, if we spend that energy instead to let ourselves feel it, because that does take energy too, to let ourselves feel that emotion with Jesus and let it tell us, let Jesus interpret it for us, then they bless us. Our emotions bless us by telling us what's underneath the surface. We get to know ourselves and God and each other in a way that thinking and doing will never be able to show us. So here's my encouragement, and the worship team can come up. Here's my encouragement. Whatever your range or natural capacity is for emotion, you don't have to be intensely emotional like I am or cry all the time like I do, but whatever your range is, fully lean into the emotions that you do experience, like Jesus did. Let your emotions signal to you what's underneath the surface. Let Jesus interpret those emotions to you when something's not right or it's not lining up. Let your emotions take you to God. Feel them with him in his presence. Let your emotions bless you and the others around you. And as a body, my encouragement to us as a body is, can we be welcoming of people's emotions? Welcoming what they are bringing to our body, the insights that Jesus wants to bring to us as an us through each of our emotions as they come to the surface. So this is the invitation. Just have some questions for you to ponder. Okay? In the presence of Jesus, take some time, still yourself, be with Jesus, and talk to him about your answers to these questions and see if maybe you sense an invitation from him after you talk to him about your answers to these questions. Are you allowing yourself to feel the full range of your own ability to feel? Are you bringing this aspect of your whole self to God and to others so that you can hear what your emotions are telling you about what's underneath your surface? And are you allowing this gift of being human to bless you and to bless others who are around you? And then a bonus one for all of us as a body. Are we as a body valuing this ability to feel in ourselves and others? Are we welcoming it and honoring it in all we do?